Hi guys, we're back for part 2 with Steve, the channel swimmer. All right, so last time we were talking about safety, and now I want to talk about prep, mental, physical prep. So the week of, what do you do mentally or physically the week of a channel swim to make sure you're ready?
A couple things. I mean, the first thing is I keep checking the weather. I don't know if that's pathologic or constructive.
But you said you'll swim either way.
I'll swim either way. But enough people over the years have told me to just kind of drop the intensity and drop the training volume, so I will bring it down a bit. But it's still fairly intense. There's still a lot going on.
Yeah.
Usually 1 or 2 days before I'm definitely dropped off.
Yeah.
So that's like as far as swimming is concerned. I've also figured out my feeds by then, kind of planned like what I'm gonna go get at the grocery store.
Yeah.
If I'm traveling, it's really advisable to find out what resources you have in the area, especially if you're going rural.
Yeah.
So you wanna know what kind of stores have what, and if you don't think that they're gonna have what you need, you have to bring it with you.
Yeah.
So things like that. I mean, and the weather does weigh heavily on my mind, as well as just kind of like succeeding, you know.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, I really want to go fast, but at the same time, fast isn't everything. Completion is the most important thing.
Okay, Kendra, go ahead. Wait, not that one.
We have a
to ask
3-year-old
this
in the
question. Yeah, we have an active
today,
participant.
so.
He's in awe. How do you break up the mileage during your swims? I know you stop and feed every 30 minutes. Is it just 30-minute segments?
It's 30-minute segments, because if you said I'm gonna feed every mile, sometimes that can be an hour without moving and not eating. Could be even longer. Some people do 45 minutes, some people do even an hour. I mean, I used to do 45 minutes. I realized that I was better off having less in my stomach, so I don't need to tank up every 45 minutes. If I'm eating every 30 minutes, I can actually get by with less volume.
Right.
Plus, most people are gonna swim a mile within a half an hour, especially close to shore. And again, in deep ocean, that formula doesn't work so well. But I still like to think about it that way.
Yeah.
And the best advice I've ever received was years ago. It was a guy that was invited to speak, Paul Asmuth, A-S-M-U-T-H, I believe is the spelling. He's a former, long distance swimmer champion, really fantastic guy. And he gave this lecture to a group of scar swimmers in Arizona the night before the event. And he was so inclusive and so encouraging to all of us, and none of us really compare to the accomplishment that this guy has.
Yeah.
But he said basically, if you're swimming 30 miles, you're swimming 30 miles.
So the mileage is just little segments. Think of it that way.
Yeah, if you break it up into, I'm gonna swim a mile and see what happens next.
Yeah.
It really is, it weighs so much easier on the mind.
Yeah.
It's just, the concept is, okay, I get to eat in a half an hour. I'm gonna hopefully swim a mile in that hour. I mean, really, most people can do that. It's just conditions matter, right?
Yeah.
And so then you're not thinking of, wow, I'm gonna swim 60K.
Yeah.
My God,
Yeah.
you might not even get off the couch that day if that's how you feel about
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, one of the things that Deb said was, she took it 30 minutes at a time, and you might have a really bad 30 minutes, but that doesn't mean you're going to have a really bad 12 hours. So go the 30 minutes and then reassess and see how you feel the next 30 minutes, because it could change.
Yeah, I mean, if you have enough power and if you feel comfortable to keep swimming, I mean, it's totally doable.
Yeah.
So in 2014, I did Catalina Channel, and my paddler did that to me all night. I didn't even really know about that concept, but every time I would whine about vomiting or just being cold, because that water was much colder than what I was used to.
Yeah.
I swam in October. I was living in Hawaii for many years at the time, so I was cold. But he'd be like, well, let's just swim over there, and he'd point. I'd be like, yeah, that direction?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll swim that way.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, let's talk next feed. And we just did it all night long. And then the next thing I know is I was like, just get me to sunup and I'll be fine. Once I got the sun on my back, my attitude will change. And it did. And then I had to swim 2 more hours and I was done.
Yeah.
It's not bad at all. mental games.
Secretly, yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
If you get the right crew who can kind of manipulate, I mean, I hate to use the word manipulation, but if the crew can manipulate the swimmer's mind that way, it matters.
It really does.
If anything, I'd feel like I'd be a better crewmate and a better coach for open water swimmers than an open water swimmer his or herself. Like at this point, I feel like I could really get into someone's mind and tweak it enough where I can convince them to go.
Yeah, yeah.
And as I would say, like compared to Deb's interview, I felt like Deb and I did that to each other all night long.
Yeah.
And you haven't asked me, if I may say, you know, I was sick, right? And she's like, well, you seem okay. Why don't we just swim to the next feed? Like, okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
And I had told her to do that to me ahead of time. I'm like, that really works with me.
Yeah.
And then she was doing it, but not in an overt way. Like, I didn't realize it was the trick.
Right.
I just allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm like, well, Deb keeps going and she's never swam more than 5 miles. Who am I to quit?
Yeah.
And then she confided with me later. It's like, well, if this guy could puke his guts out and keep swimming, then who am I to quit?
Yeah,
like, that was her thought.
Yeah.
And so that was probably the most synergistic swim I've ever done with another person, where I was just like, it was totally playing off each other's lives.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing works, breaking it into pieces and boosting your confidence that way.
Yeah, make it more manageable that way.
Yeah.
I had a swim coach in college that knew that if he told me I couldn't do something or I couldn't beat someone, I would do it to prove him wrong. And I didn't realize till years later that he knew that about me. I discovered it about myself years later. And he said, yeah, that's why I always told you. I knew you could do it, but if I told you couldn't, then you would prove me wrong.
Yeah. The greatest thing about this event is so many people can contribute in so many ways.
Yeah.
You know, and even like I've talked to captains years after I swam with them and what they said, and their impression was so much more positive than mine was at the time. And I'd be like, really, you had a ton of fun? That's awesome. I didn't know you felt that way about that swim. It was hard, it was cold, it was dark.
Yeah.
You were worried about sharks at that one time, and that's what populated my mind. And then they share the story years later, and you're like, wow, that was meaningful for everyone involved.
Okay. So, the swim, you were sick during it. Okay. How did you stay motivated through that? How did you know that you could be sick but keep going?
I didn't. I mean, I'd been sick before, but this was different. This was food poisoning.
Yeah.
I mean, I went through this bout where I'd get dizzy and obviously seasick years ago, and slowly I worked through it to figure out what meds I would take and what strategies I would do. And I haven't quite cracked it yet as far as where to look, how often to pull my head up and check things out, when to go backstroke, maybe to just kind of shake up that equilibrium. But I was able at Kalakahi Channel to kind of overcome it, where I swam strong and ate all the time and felt great. But this was food poisoning, so this was like,
you know, different.
But because...
All right, we're back, uninterrupted.
we arranged childcare.
We've got childcare now. Okay, so mileage, we broke that up. Staying motivated through your getting sick was, you were were you completely relying on Deb to try to keep you motivated, or you could stay motivated yourself through the tough spots?
It's almost sleep, you know, it's like sensory deprivation. You got to kind of empty your whole mind of things because there's not much to see. And so I'll think about different things. I try to look at the environment. It was beautiful that night. I try to think of who invested their time in it, and it's just so much more than just yourself, really.
Right.
You know, I think someone asked me for a quote for Facebook, and I said something like the best swim partner is someone who gets you to think more about what's possible and less about yourself. And so you start focusing on the goal and not like the pains you have and the sickness you have and the distractions. You're just like, you kind of take the big picture. And I think that's very important. You know, plus I had tried it twice, and you know, I got really sick, and I quit for basically no reason in the past. You know, I could have made it. I just was like uncomfortable, and I thought to myself, I don't want to swim being so uncomfortable. I swim to have fun, right?
So that was one of my next questions was, you've gotten out of how many channel swims? Just a couple.
Yeah.
So how did you know when to quit, when to pull the plug on it?
I mean, in retrospect, now that doing Kaiwi, you know, being so sick 22 hours, I think, man, I should never have quit.
Yeah.
I totally could have made it. I mean, I've analyzed this a lot, and I've gotten it down to basically one swim, and that was cooked straight, and I was hypothermic,
Right.
and there was no finishing that.
Right.
All the others, it's like, or the few others, it's like, yeah, no, I could have gone,
Yeah.
you know. But sometimes your mind gets into dark places, and you
Right.
just throw yourself into peril, and you're the reason that you quit.
Yeah.
And
Were you alone on those swims? Or did you have partners with you?
one, I was alone. The 2 Kaiwi channel crossings, you know, was basically I ended 5 hours, 10 miles in both times. One, I was alone, and I got really dark in my mind. And the other, I was with 3 friends, and two of them were cranking, and the other 2 of us just weren't. And we started separating. It was pitch black, and the boat started following the lead group.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was just too discouraging. You
Yeah.
know, we were left behind with our bottles a few times. It was dark. The
Yeah.
kayakers were seasick. They couldn't kayak.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? It's not,
You're pretty much on your own
It's not
out
my
there.
night tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. So that was 2018, that one.
Do you regret the times that you stopped, or did you learn enough from it to, were you able to learn from it and not regret it?
I mean, I regret it, but I definitely learned. You learn every time you go
Right.
out. Whether you succeed or fail, you're going to learn something.
Yeah.
You'll learn something about the crew, the swim, nature, yourself, the mechanics of it all the working parts that have to be considered. It's all valuable. Putting yourself out there is the most important thing. You're not always going to succeed. I think when you start, you succeed so many times because you don't know anything about failure.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a physician, so I overanalyze everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, if I'm this sick, this bad thing will happen to me. I better quit now
Yeah.
because I don't want it to get ugly.
Right.
Yeah, but if you just kind of go out there with bliss and you just don't think about it,
Yeah.
you probably would succeed. The human body can do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And some other advice people would say, you know, put your head down and just tell the body where to go.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, yeah, basically that's important.
Yeah.
You know, don't think of failure, the concept, who cares? You know,
Yeah.
why would you think about that? You
Yeah.
shouldn't, you know, we all do, but I'm just saying, you know, the perfect swim is to not even think about that.
Yeah.
You know, Deb, I don't think was thinking about failure that night. She was really enjoying it. She was eating like crazy and just enjoying the feeds. And I thought, wow, you know, that's a
Yeah.
great way to take down a swim. It's like,
Yeah.
I want peanut butter and jelly next
Yeah.
feed. I'm like, I was like, that's a beautiful thing. I wanted more of that. I wanted to
Yeah.
be part of that. I didn't have that for myself, but I definitely lived it through her.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're gonna have those moments. I think the key is the week of prep matters. You know, you can't go dark when you're waiting for these things. It's not epic. We're amateur athletes. Nothing
Yeah.
bad's gonna happen if you fail. You're gonna lose cash.
Yeah.
You know, you invest travel and money in this, time off from your family. But if you populate your mind with all of those things that you're sacrificing for a single event, you're gonna go crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it's not easy to forego all of that thought. It's not for nothing when you have that thought. But remaining positive, the attitude that you bring to the event is the most important thing. And the 2 recent ones, the big channels I did, I just had the right attitude.
Yeah, it
Those
makes a huge
particular
difference.
times. In Kauai to Niihau, I really think that was my favorite swim because I definitely had the best attitude I've ever had. I was like, yes, I loved eating.
So what affected, do you think, going into it, your attitude on those swims that made it so good?
I mean, so Kalakahi, Kauai to Niihau, was August 8th, and never tried it. Or no, I had swam it with Quinn Rorden, my friend, and he got stung, and then I was just like, why am I swimming this? You know,
Yeah.
like our dream to swim this together is over.
Right. Right.
He's out, he looks terrible. What the hell am I doing
Yeah.
here? Okay, so is that a real attempt? I mean, should I have just pushed it? And
Yeah.
the whole crew was just hating it? Anyway, so then when I went out again, he was like, I'm going to Japan, I got nothing to do with that. I'm like, okay, I'm on my own. So
Yeah.
then 3 of my kids, so my oldest was the crew for the June attempt, and my other 3 kids were on that boat. I had the best boat captain, fun guy, knowledgeable, cool. He was so good to my children.
Yeah.
My wife was at the hotel basically monitoring us and watching out for us and making sure the support was there, which was really awesome because for years she wasn't part of these swims, partly my doing, partly her doing. So knowing she was part of it was important. And then I had done this scopolamine patch under my suit with a tegaderm dressing, and I had no dizziness, no nausea. I raced a lot of it. I literally sprinted the last 5 hours, which is kind of crazy, but I put it out there and I was eating and enjoying it. We had those shark encounters, which were totally non-encounters. They were just curious, hanging out, watching.
What kind of sharks?
They turned out to be silkies.
Oh, okay.
And so I know this because another group was swimming that channel at the same time, and they had gotten some video of them. I got video, but then I destroyed my phone doing so. But they showed me theirs, and I'm like, yeah, those kind of sharks they kept showing up. They showed up 4 times, 3 of which I knew about, and they were quite close and just kind of doing their thing and not aggressive at all.
Yeah, that's the same kind that Calvin, the silky gray shark that followed Ryan and Lecty in their channel swim recently. Yeah.
So we were probably a mile apart in that channel, not part of the same swim, but same kind of sharks.
Yeah.
And so that was exciting. I mean, it was a little scary, but the captain, the joke we told each other days after was, he said, well, he saw the sharks, he told me there were sharks, and then I asked for a feed. And his impression was, man, if this guy is just going to pull his goggles off and ask for a feed, I guess he doesn't care about the sharks. And then I saw him, handing me a feed, smiling, looking all cool, and I was like, man, if this captain doesn't seem to care about the sharks, I guess I should, why should I worry? And so we admitted that to each other days later, and I was like, there's all sorts of Jedi mind tricks that occur on these swims, which are just super cool.
Yeah.
And so I was in awe of him and his demeanor, and I guess he thought that about me. I wasn't anything particular. I was definitely not acting cool and calm. I was like, oh, sharks? Ah, great. I got to wait this out and see what they do. Yep. And my kids are there. I don't want to be devoured by sharks in front of my children. They'll never go in the water.
No.
So I did think that. But then we're just okay, and then we'll just keep swimming. And then we swam, and then they had another second episode where they did the same thing. They kind of circled the first couple times. And he throws me this pole, and he's like, you can poke them, but don't drop the pole, it might sink. I'm like, all right, what am I going to do with this? Anyway, so nothing happens. And so then we swim, and then the third time is when I grab my phone, and I'm like, toss me my phone. I got to get this. And I had a waterproof case. It was an old iPhone 6 or 5 even. It just wasn't waterproof itself. Yeah. And the thing, I got 3 minutes of video. The shark was just kind of hanging out. I thought they have to move to breathe, but this thing seemed still. And I was just loving it. And that was it. And then the 4th episode, I didn't even know about. And usually, good crews, they're not going to really tell you about sharks, especially if they look dangerous, because that ends swims.
Yeah.
And that's what the crew's for. They're assessing. And a lot of these guys are experienced water people. They're going to know. Yeah. And so let them that's part of their job. That's not my job. My job is to jump on if they tell me get close to the boat, I get close to the boat. If they tell me to jump on the boat, I might ponder it. Right. But I probably would jump on the boat because I'm under their command. Yeah. They're in charge of safety.
That's an important lesson, though, to learn. So when I did the double rough water swim, my husband was my escort, and we argued the entire time because we both wanted to be in charge. And I never learned the lesson of he's in charge. I'm here to swim, and he's guiding me. And it made for a very long day.
I mean, it could go terribly wrong if you're very experienced and your crew is not. Yeah. But that's the whole thing. You got to vet the crew. Yeah. And if these guys work on the water for a living, I mean, I'll definitely say in Hawaii, it's a big deal here. It's part of the culture. It's ingrained. But not just Hawaii. I mean, in Gibraltar, my crew was fantastic.
Yeah. So do you usually find them word of mouth?
Yeah, I mean, there's associations internationally. Like Gibraltar has the specific association. You could probably find any pilot to bring you across, but you may not get certified. And that's a whole other issue. Are you doing it just for a little certificate, or are you doing it to do it? Right. And so I get a little bit uncomfortable with that because I think no one owns the water, and I want to enjoy the water on my terms, and I don't want people insisting I got to do it with them or this way
Mm-hmm.
or that. I mean, it's a sport, so following the rules of the sport are important, but the commercial aspect kind of turns me off. But that being said, you know, Catalina has an association. They run it really nice. It's very fair. It's very swimmer friendly.
Mm-hmm.
They have observers on the boat who are themselves swimmers, and the captains, for the most part, they had 2 or 3 crews running all these swims, and these guys are invested in your success.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk down about other places, but I've been I've swam in other parts of the world where the association is not swimmer friendly.
Yeah.
They're really about the payment and, you know, the way they want to do it. I've had swims canceled due to weather, and I'm paying 2/3 of the cost, and I'm thinking, hey, that's Mother Nature, not me.
Yeah.
I showed up,
Yeah.
I'm here,
Yeah.
and we're all taking a hit.
Yeah.
So I don't think the swimmer needs to be charged unfairly.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, and it's like, forget about it. You
Yeah.
know, what for?
Yeah.
But you're paying for local knowledge, and if you're going to some foreign country that you don't know the water, I don't think going to a bar and finding a
Right.
captain
Yeah.
is your best option, you know? So you got English Channel, which is really well run from what I've heard. I've not attempted that yet. That's the plan. North Channel, I hear excellent things about. So you got pockets of really genuine good people doing it for the right reasons. You know, we do it to ourselves as swimmers. I mean, to some extent, then people just want to check these boxes and they'll pay anything and they'll tolerate anything, and so the quality might go down. The more people who do this with perhaps not the total informed decisions or right reasons for it.
Yeah.
But that happens in every walk of life and every type of event. So I tell people, you know, just be careful. You know, word of mouth is important. Local associations, don't betray them either. I mean, you don't want to go and hire your own boat and be like, look what I'm
Yeah.
doing. I mean,
Yeah.
I've thought about it, but then I think, no, that's kind of obnoxious.
Yeah.
You know,
Because that's also helping to support their economy.
exactly. You know, that's a big part of it. And Gibraltar's on the map because it was dubbed one of the Ocean Seven.
Yeah.
But it's also a very wonderful swim, and I'm telling you, that crew, they were incredible.
Yeah.
Like, they were fun. My daughter was 12 years old at the time. She just turned 12, and she was on the boat. And I could just hear the way they're talking to her in
Yeah.
Spanish, but the way they cared for my daughter, I was like, oh, this is so fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's only, it took me 4 hours. 12 miles was the course. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Incredible push on your back. Cold water. You know, the organizer of that channel crossing, he passed away from what I heard was brain cancer. He was a fantastic guy. I mean,
Yeah.
I got to know him throughout the week I was there. He swam me the day I landed.
Yeah.
I was supposed to go on a Thursday. He called me up. He's like, you want to swim tonight? Or, you know, like the next day, the next morning? And I was like, I guess. You know, I was jet lagged like 12 hours. I mean, I just got in. But I did it. And then what was awesome about it is I had the whole week with my daughter with the joy of having completed that channel under my belt. And now I'm a
Yeah.
tourist in Spain,
Yeah.
rolling like that.
Yeah.
And New Zealand was the opposite. Phil Rush ran it perfectly. The conditions were terrible the entire 7 days I was there. The 8th day, no one has had better conditions than I. It was like a lake. It was flat as amazing. So we went out, and that was hypothermia, and I didn't finish. So I didn't have to walk around New Zealand with failure.
Yeah.
But I walked around New Zealand with apprehension for 7 days,
Yeah.
wondering when the swim was going to go
Yeah,
down,
that's
right?
tough.
And every night waiting for the weather report and being told, hey, sit this one out. Maybe, maybe, maybe.
Yeah.
So it depends on what happens. There's a lot of uncertainty. And so, you know, in part, you got to just be there and just be willing to enjoy the environment.
Yeah.
And you can't let the swim be the only reason you're there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Recovery from these swims. How long does it take you to recover, and what does it look like?
Flat out IV fluid. If you give yourself 2 or 3 liters the night of,
Afterwards.
I'm basically thinking about my next swim the day after.
Huh.
I might during the swim think I'm never going to swim again. This is it.
Yeah,
I'm done
yeah,
forever.
Yeah.
But and then I kind of try to make it so that I'll make that plan, you know, so I could do other things, get back into running or get into my work or whatever. But if I tank up with fluids, if I can eat, or if I give myself an IV, And I know most people aren't going to do that, but that's just me.
Yeah.
And then I've gotten rid of the lactic acid and I've cooled my muscles down and I feel great.
Yeah.
So with Kaivi, I was basically ready to go in 2 days. I hit the water
Yeah.
on day 3 after. I was in the pool, not to train per se, but just to see what would happen and to kind of enjoy it and to just get back into it, you know, not with a specific plan, but with a hope.
Yeah.
So recovery, I think, is different. So I think the key is to definitely, so your recovery starts as soon as you start the swim. And what I mean by, especially in races, you have to eat, like in these 4-day races, or with 8 bridges, that was 7 of 8 days we swam straight. I looked at it as the recovery started the moment I started the swim that day. Because if I don't eat well and I don't swim well, I'm gonna be messed up for the next days.
Yeah.
So the calorie intake was important at the moment, but then after, like 4 of us would go and I'd eat burgers and milkshakes and just any basically piece of trash I could find that had calories in it. I was like, I just enjoyed it. And that's the joy of this kind of a sport. You kind of eat and get away with it.
Yeah.
So the calories, the macronutrients are very important, the fluid intake. But I mean, I feel like I'm cheating in a way when I give myself IV fluid, because I know most people don't have access to those resources, and I do, and so I do it, and I really recover quick. But without those resources, I think it's just being mindful, making sure you're in stretching, relaxation, and eating well for 1 or 2 or 3 days after. Deb jokes, she said she slept for like a week.
Yeah.
I was back at work, you know, after Kaivi, I went to the ER from like 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. just because I was barfing so much. I had chest pain, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't rupture my esophagus. Basically, that's why I went. Then I got all this IV fluid. I was back at work noon the day after.
Yeah.
I called in sick the morning of. I'm like, I can't see patients like this. But when I got to work, I was fine.
Yeah. Well,
you know?
so now I've noticed they do have some of those, I don't know, health spas or something where people can go get IV fluids for recovery, like endurance athletes. I see it on their Instagram. I think there's one in Kailua Town that you can go get fluids.
Yeah, I mean, I have a doctor friend, he's an anesthesiologist, and he runs a company like that.
Yeah.
He's got nurses working with him, and they basically are mobile, and they'll give you IVs anywhere. It's very popular in Waikiki after parties, is what I've been told.
I've heard the same
I'm not
thing.
doing a product placement. I don't know what his company's called. But yeah, so after endurance events, like he finds that he's got business there.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think that's important. I remember doing a double AOW channel with Mark Williams, and I've been seasick at that time, so I basically plugged in an IV and stayed in the hotel. And him and one of the paddlers, they went out and they had beer and pizza, and they had the best night on the town, and I woke up at 5 a.m. and I was like, just felt bad that I missed it. And then I had some pizza, and it was great, so it kind of made up for it. But, you know, then we had to fly home from Maui back to Oahu. So stuff like that, you know, it's important.
Yeah. Who mentors you? Who do you look to as a mentor, and who motivates you?
I haven't found a mentor yet. I crave one. I wish there would. I really feel like I'd never quit a channel if I had someone like my friend Michael and Catalina. If that guy, I mean, he's got small kids, he's busy, he can't come out here. But he was the best influence I've ever had on a swim. And no, I'm mentorless. I feel bad. Because I think it's important.
Hurt me a little right here.
Why?
I feel like you're a swim orphan.
I am. No one ever really wanted to take me under their wing. It's probably because I don't know. I guess I can't get into that. I'm not really sure why.
Yeah.
But no coach has ever really gravitated toward me on that level, except Randy. I talked to you about Randy, the way he got me to train. He was kind of like that, but, you know, he was also a busy guy. And, you know, nowadays, I mean, you really have to pay for professional help.
Yeah.
You know, and I was already, like, spending so much money on all my kids' activities.
Yeah.
And these swims cost a lot of money when they do occur, so I'm like, I can't pay for a coach. And so, yeah, it's a shame, you know.
So who motivates you? There's a ladybug on your arm right now, which I feel like that's going to bring you luck, and a mentor may come out of this.
See? Maybe this is my mentor, so I'm not going to crush him or her or whatever.
Who motivates you?
My oldest daughter motivates me because, she's a diver and a water polo player, and I saw her grow into the sports over the years, and started with soccer and went that way. And she would just be really jazzed when I would do these things. And like I said, she was on my crew in Spain and New Zealand and even Kalakahi, the first attempt. And just the way she's encouraging, I think she really helps.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's self-motivation. It's just this desire, this burning desire to feel that feeling. The feeling I have the day after the swim is irreplaceable by anything, really.
Yeah.
By most things.
Yeah.
It's just a sense of accomplishment and well-being and satisfaction with life on your terms and your abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And that I realized over the years, that's what I really like. That's what I'm really after.
Yep.
That feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, when you don't succeed, the despair is it takes away from that.
Yeah.
And don't try to forget it, because you really shouldn't forget it. It needs to be somewhat of a badge
learn from it.
that you have to learn from. And that's the hurtful part of it. But mostly it's positive. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't positive.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm here for joy, right? I'm
Yeah.
here for satisfaction. So that feeling that I derive is what chiefly motivates me. And then there's been some good coaches along the way. Carl is a great coach. Technique-wise, he's taught me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a deck coach at UH Masters, and then I basically said, hey, I'm going to hire you.
Yeah.
Can you coach me? But admittedly, he's like, I don't really know how to coach you. I mean, I don't do these kind of things, But then when he was on the boat, he was kind of doing the same manipulations that I needed.
Yeah.
And so, people over the years have had good influence, but no steady mentor. And I just learned how to maintain motivation on my own, which is not the way I would prefer it. I really would rather say I have this one person in mind who's made every difference in my life, right? It's not that way. But craving, that next joy is the big part of it.
Somebody I talked to earlier today said that the euphoria he felt in the last mile of his swim was just a feeling he can't find anywhere else. And that was one of the things that really motivates him, is to feel that feeling at the end of the swim.
Yeah, when you're closing in on it, it's funny because I don't particularly think it's a done deal till it's done.
Yeah.
Even when I see shore and I'm like a few hundred meters, I'm like, anything could happen.
Yeah.
I have no idea if I'm going to finish yet. It's kind of silly, but I'm kind of hold myself to that because I don't want to take it for granted.
Jinx yourself, yeah.
But when you start crawling on that reef or hiking up that sand, that's when it really starts to hit.
Yeah.
And then when you do that run up into the sand, it's like, that's when it really occurs. And then it lasts for several days or even weeks, or even now. I still feel that way now. And it's all inside, really.
Yeah.
It comes from within, and it's just a general euphoria and a satisfaction with it.
Yeah. And you should feel that way. Those are big accomplishments. And it's a lot of dedication to get it done. It's a lot of strong mental game to push through and do it.
Mostly mental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't done a channel, but I would agree with that.
Well, February when you come out and do all three.
It's going to need a lot of mental. Yes. What has changed from your first channel swim to your most recent one?
We kind of talked about this before the interview. I mean, having influence on others is totally what I'm after.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the craving. If you can get someone who seemingly has no clue that they can do this.
Yeah.
Kind of like Deb.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to tweak her into thinking it, but I guess I did in retrospect.
Yeah.
We trained together. We're a good speed combo. Had a lot of fun, a lot of nice talk on the water in between, turning the buoy or whatever. And I like her. And it was simple. And so then I thought, she's really a good swimmer. Why can't she do it?
Yeah.
Why does anyone have to train 50K a week to do this? And my friend Joe, his brother John, is like that. He works in Africa. He's a petroleum engineer, I think, and he just doesn't have access to water. And then he drops in with Joe and just does these mammoth channels. Those were the two guys who bested me in Kaiwi and basically contributed to my failure jerks. But they're my buddies, right? And so he doesn't train, he just shows up. So I'm thinking, okay, Deb, you know.
Yeah. So she was an experiment.
I didn't think about it that way, but
I'm joking.
But it's kind of funny because she was like, I'll just jump in at an hour and try to motivate you. And I was like, why don't you try to do the whole thing? Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you can do it. That's what I told her. I think you totally could do this. But if you're going to do this, you have to start. You can't drop in.
Yeah.
And then as the night rolled, you know, she did it.
Yeah.
And to me, that was like, I mean, I can't really weigh which one I feel better about, but that's part of my satisfaction. Is, you know, she's already a good swimmer and she had it within her. And if I, for a moment, helped her see that in herself, like,
it's a good feeling.
I feel great.
Yeah.
And when we do those Maui triangle swims in the fall, 3 channels, 3 days, I mean, I brought some people who didn't sincerely think that they can do it, but I just felt like they had the athletic ability and they just need to be kind of convinced.
Yep.
And to see them walk up on day 3 after swimming 3 channels in Hawaii where they're not from and, you know, whatever, I think, oh, you know, that's it. So I think that's a big motivator now. And I think the real successful people in swimming, you know, the greatest success stories are the people, like I was talking about Jeff Stabile, who's a diver who's going to get inducted into Hawaii Swimming Hall of Fame next year. And I think he coached my daughter for a year or two. And I think, this guy's influenced hundreds of teenagers, young people who have only hopefully positive thoughts in the future ahead of them. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
He's also a great diver.
Yeah.
But besides that, he's done all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I just swim, you know? I hosted an event for 3 years in a row. The 4th year got canceled due to COVID.
Yeah.
And now we're going to host it 3 times this coming year. And I want to get as many people motivated to do it as possible, especially those who feel that they can't do it.
Yeah.
Because that's the cool part.
That's one of the things that I think of when I attempt something is, one thing is I want to do it because other people might not be able to. Physically, you know, whatever the case may be, I am appreciative of my ability to be able to do it, and others may not be able to do it, and I want to show my appreciation by doing it. But another thing is, you know, you never know who's watching you and who you're inspiring when you're doing it. And I think that's a big thing, you know, that contributes to motivating is somebody's watching you and you're inspiring them just by simply doing it. You may never know it, but it's happening.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I guess my twist on that is I'll really try to be at my best because I'll think to myself, yeah, don't look lame, they're watching. I'll be like, make sure your stroke looks good and don't suck and don't whine too much because they're watching you. Like, try not to reveal the dark sides. But I guess you could say that's motivation.
Yeah. Looking good, that's your motivation.
Yeah. Best foot forward.
Well, so that kind of got into my next question of what's your why? Why do you do this?
I love the feeling of water. I think that's mainly it, really.
Which is ironic considering it took you a while to get comfortable in it when you were a kid.
Yeah. But junior high school, I was like, man, this is my sport. In high school, I did baseball, swimming in the winter, grew up in Chicago, and then, soccer in the fall, swimming, and then baseball in the spring. And then they had finally a men's volleyball team when I was a sophomore. So I just made the baseball team. I was really happy as a sophomore to make the baseball team, but then I quit because I'm like, I want to play volleyball. So swimming was, and then in the summer I did other sports. I didn't swim all year long.
Yeah.
You know, but I always went back to that sport throughout life. I didn't swim in college because I was too busy working to get through college. And then in med school, it was just like, I don't remember med school.
Yeah.
I just think I studied all the time. I mean, I don't know what happened in med school. And then residency, I started swimming with a water polo club, and I was like, I love this.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to Hawaii, I'd go to the district pools, and I'd be like 50-meter outdoor pools all year long, free parking, free everything.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I
You just
swim?
have to take advantage of it, yeah.
And then you got the ocean and you're like, it's so beautiful. And that was the takeoff point right there. I was like, I like swimming. I like a lot of things, mountain climbing, running. But let's face it, we live in Hawaii. We got better access to water than anyone else. And I thought, if I'm gonna try to really enjoy something and really put myself to the test, that's probably gonna be it for now. And that was it. But there's nothing like swimming like a 10K and actually getting out and feeling awesome. We do 10Ks every Thanksgiving at UH, and I'd be like, the rest of the day I felt amazing.
Just feel great.
And then I could eat whatever I want. Kind of mellow, hanging out with my kids, my wife, and I'd be like, this is the best feeling ever. I want more of this. So that's it. I don't know if it's an addiction per se, but it's like, you grow to miss it, right? You travel and you're like, I haven't been in the water in 3 days. Some people aren't in the water all year long. 3 days bothers me. I'm like, when am I going to get back in the water? What's wrong? You know?
I didn't get to swim today, and I can tell in my attitude that I need to get back in the water.
Yeah, that's what I noticed among other swimmers. The one time I was in China and we were on some lecture tour, and I swam in the Li River in Guilin. And as soon as I jumped in the water, I had my suit on, no one knew. As soon as I jumped in the water, the tour guides were like, you gotta get out. It's terribly polluted. And I was like, I want to swim in the Li River.
I just need to be in it.
And I swam like a good half hour alongside this little skiff that was carrying the tour, my tour people. And I mean, I think I suffered from that after a while, but I enjoyed it. I'm glad I did it. My intestines aren't glad, but I felt pretty good about it.
It was a cleanse. It was a cleanse diet.
And we joked. I had a buddy, act like he was giving me a feed, because I was just like, act like it's a competition in the Li River. It's only one swimmer, the only one who's getting in the water.
Well, you lost and you won.
Right? I mean, so there's that. One time I did 1,000 laps in a Hilton hotel pool. Because I just wanted to bang it out. And I think it was like not even 14 strokes, maybe 12 strokes to the wall. Stuff like that. It's like you find yourself like just craving it so much, you do kind of ridiculous things like that. And sometimes you just hold yourself to these things because you think it's part of your training regimen. But if I look back, I think, pretty much every swim I've ever done, I've enjoyed on some level.
There's a reason for it. How does your family fit into this? So, because you have to have spouse buy-in for a lot of these things because it's time consuming.
I mean, it's tough to talk about this because I wonder if my wife's going to see this.
Say nice things.
I love her, and she's really supportive. And we definitely had conflict for many years over this because I would travel far for a swim. I'd be training a lot. I was missing out on stuff with the kids. I wasn't the best husband or father.
And that's why I ask these questions, because there are, a lot of us that are juggling having a spouse, having a job, having kids, and trying to factor all of this in. And if a spouse isn't a swimmer, they don't necessarily see the why and why you have to do it. And what is the addiction to it? And, there can be some convincing involved.
I think trying to tell them and trying to explain the joy that you get from swimming might help. I didn't do that early enough. I wish I had owned up to that. It was almost like I was trying to hide that because it was a competition in a way. Like, hey, you can't be swimming all this time. We got all these things to do. And I was rigid with myself. I'd be like, I got to swim 15K today. So if that means I'm going to try to get my father-in-law to pick up a kid. And if I do that enough times in a row, I've really missed out on my child. And I definitely did stuff like that. And so I firmly believe in 2014, when I quit Kaiwi at 10 miles, is pretty much the dark thoughts about who am I to do this, how selfish I was. And that was it. And my wife and I were fighting at the time over it. I actually swam Catalina. I didn't even tell her I was going out there for the swim. I told her I was going to a conference, and I did go to a conference, but that was secondary to the swim.
She knows now, right? In case
she knows now, but she's really hurt by that.
Oh, I bet.
I bet. I hit it. And then to boot, I met some of my best friends to do it, who their wives or they had to indicate that they were part of this. And I think, man, that was deep, like, why did I do stuff like that? Well, I was just, the bottom line is this: I'm a doctor, I'm a surgeon, I'm not a professional athlete, and I'm not special, you know. And to some extent, you get a little bit caught up in it, like, what if I can do this? What if I can do that? It's like, no, you gotta keep your feet on the ground and realize you're not Michael Phelps. This isn't what you do for a living. So you do have to sacrifice it sometimes. And I got away with not sacrificing it for a long time. I could train whenever I wanted. I mean, not whenever. I would tell my wife, I don't want to get up at 4:30 to go to UH Masters at 5:30. But since no one's up, and I can still drive the kids to school when I'm done, what's it to them? Well, Steve, you know, you're falling asleep on the couch at 8 p.m. and I don't feel like I'm part of your life. So she was right. But I was like, hey, you know, what's it to you if I do all this when no one needs me? But then you have to be very rigid with yourself to pull that off, because you got to get up, get in the cold water when you don't, you know, in the dark. I would do double practices. I would do triple practices. I'd go to the beach during lunch. I'd go to UH Masters in the morning and at night. So 3 hours of Masters practices, 5 days a week, or on Saturday morning. And I did that from 2013 probably till 2016, and I was vicious with it to myself and my family. I was like, I must do this, therefore you got to be in the background, and I regret it deeply. I think I could have still accomplished a lot without being that way. I didn't know it then, but now I know it. So now when people ask me, I'm like, focus on your family, focus on your kids. But if you sacrifice too much of yourself and you are a watered down version of yourself, you're not going to be a good role model for anybody, including yourself. And if you're in distress or you're depressed or you're unfulfilled, that's going to reflect clearly. They're going to see that right through it. So you still have to maintain this balance to be able to achieve it.
And that, you know, that's where I struggle some, because I work and my husband is not stationed here right now, so I'm pretty much a single mom, and on the weekends, you know, I need to get in the water, and I think, well, I could be spending time with my son, but also if I'm not in that water, I'm not as good of a mom as I need to be for him.
It's a tough balance.
Yeah, it is, but you got to get through the balance.
Yeah.
What was your least favorite channel?
Ooh, Michael's returning. Huh?
You found a fishy.
Meanwhile, Auntie Deb, who's been watching him, I think, has run out of ploys to distract this young man.
Can I have 5 more minutes?
I want to.
You need water? Okay, hold on. Okay, what was your least favorite channel?
I feel like I should have advanced prepared that one. I can't think of anything.
You don't have a least favorite one.
Ow Wow Channel 2019, least favorite, hands
Why?
down. It took almost 8 hours for 7 of us to cross it. The conditions were terrible. Not wind and chop, just weird currents.
Yeah.
And you know, you go in there with a group of fast people and you're like, yeah, you know, I want to finish in 4 hours and go eat, right? And then it takes 8 and you're like, oh man, I hate this, you know? Yeah.
What has been your favorite, or what is your dream channel, your dream swim?
I liked Kalamata 2016. I swam it with my friend Attila. That was incredible, beautiful, great people, great food. That was a dream. I want to do, it's called Ali Nui Ha channel. I'm not committing to, no, I'm going to commit. Anyway.
It's on film.
It's on film now.
You're committed.
Is this taping? That's Big Island to Maui. I just, you know, people say that that's super hard. And
is that the one that's 60-some? Am I off on that? 60-some miles?
30 miles.
Oh, okay.
Straight line. And I figured if I could really botch Kaiwi Channel, which is 27 or so straight miles, and swim 35 miles, I'm like, hey, maybe the Big Island will be shorter. So that's kind of why I'm thinking about it. It's weird how you prioritize.
You already
stuff.
did that mileage, so now you can do a little less.
I just, you know, Harry Huffaker did it, and 3 others, and I think to myself, why can't I do that, you know? And they're amazing swimmers, all 4 of them, and so few have tried, right? So I think people don't try it because they think it's near impossible.
Because of the length?
The length and the rigor of it and the toughness of the channel. There's a big north-facing segment, so it does matter when you do it. It was, you know, Michael Spaulding got bit by a cookie cutter, but guess what? He went back the year later. I read about him. I read about him ending up in the hospital at something like 14 hours. And I thought, man, you know, and then I read it, you know, not contemporaneously, so then like a year later he had done it.
Yeah.
Or no, I think I saw the newspaper article about his hospitalization and the bite, and then I thought, oh, okay, and then the next year he did it, and I was like, that was when it was very remarkable in my mind. I was like, you know, and so now I think, okay, so if I could do Kalakahi and I can do Kaiwi channel, I think, well, why wouldn't I try that one? And most of the channels I've ever done, most of which have been in Maui and Lanai and Molokai, I had the same family crewing for me. And I love those guys. And I think, oh man, if I didn't have that feeling about the crew, I probably would not do that channel. I don't think I'd do that channel and just hire a stranger. Even if I had like great people that I'm bringing. I don't think I'd do it. But I talked to him already. I pitched it to him. He always responds the same way. It's far. It's long. You know, I said, hey, we're going to triple cross Ow channel, right? When Mark Williams and I did it, by the way, just for the record, we swam 10:31 on a double. Our plan was a triple. And he was like, why? He's like, that's long. It's like, no, we want to do that. You know, so in a way, I mean, he's a boater and he's just kind of like, what's wrong with you guys, right? So he kind of gave that to me, but then he didn't say no. And I know he'd be there and he'd just be all over it. And, you know, he brings his sons. His two sons are just amazing guys. Young guys, college age, man, but fantastic. One paddled for Mark and I. Excellent paddler. To see that guy, the way he handled the craft and paddle, I was like, yeah, I better not suck, man. I got to swim well because this kid's amazing, right? Anyway, it's kind of a dream just because I guess I've thought it was impossible and now I'm starting to realize maybe it is possible. And then if I could pick good conditions, and I don't mean the water surface, I just mean like a nice moon and some light, you know, because I want to see the stars off the Big Island are amazing. I want to be looking back every time I breathe, seeing that, and I think, yeah, you know, maybe that's the next target. You know, clearly I got my event I want to do and keep having more and more people part of it, as I've talked to you about it. And that's in my heart. But that's, you know, you could only swim, you know, Bill Godding has swam like Ow channel like I don't know how many times. And he asked, are you going to go for the record? I'm like, Bill, not that record. I don't want to keep swimming Ow channel. Sometimes it's really dirty and sludgy when you get close to Lanai. Like, no, that's not pleasant for me. Like, I don't like it. But I will do all three over and over again because that's fun. You know, change it up, different views, different water.
It's always different out there.
So
what's your end game then for channel swimming?
I don't know what the end game is. I don't have it yet.
Just keep going and enjoying it.
I mean, I'm young
and
enough to
bringing more
keep
people
doing
into it.
I mean, I've started focusing on rock climbing and mountain climbing again because I think, you know, that would be cool because I used to do that all the time and I never like pushed it farther. And then running, you know, this kid just ran around Oahu 135 miles and my daughter sends that to me. And she knows I really enjoy running, I just don't do it enough. She says, Dad, would you consider that? And I'm like, yeah, I think I would. Yeah, because I won't get seasick and I can eat anything. Why not? Why not do that? And then I actually figured out, I figured out his mile pace and how fast he had to move for this. And I was like, yeah, that's doable. You see what I mean? It's kind of like, it's not just swimming, it's just endurance pursuits. I think there's a breed of athlete that's really likes the, you know, kind of the mulling over the thought process, the satisfaction with achieving something, starting with something you think is impossible either for others or yourself. I mean, it's hard to say if you're thinking for me or for others because you're just basing it on the few people who've tried it. So I don't even have a reference point. I'm like, you know, most of the time you don't even know those people, so you're like, I don't know if they could do it. Can I do it? Would I want to do it? You know. So the end game for swimming might be catapulting into other sports. You know what I really like? Okay, I'll say this. So in Hong Kong, I work in China a lot back in the day, not anymore, and I would go through Hong Kong or whatever. And I remember someone having a challenge. I forget what they named it, but you were going to do basically a 10K sub 3 hours, which I'm like, okay, that's totally doable. But then a marathon run sub 3. And then I quickly like whip out my watch or my calculator, my iPhone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how fast is
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
You know?
What's the pace?
Because I don't run enough to immediately calculate that. You
Yeah.
talk to runners and they're like, that's a 7 minute
Yeah.
and 20-second pace. I'm like, you know. But I quickly was like, to me, that's stand out.
Yeah.
Like that would be, because swimming, people are like, how could you swim that far? It's easier than people think.
Yeah.
Once you develop stroke mechanics and efficiency, right before my Tsugaru attempt, I was swimming 100 meters. My heart rate was like 124. I wasn't working.
Yeah.
And I was swimming faster than I ever was.
Yeah. It's so much efficiency.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, okay, that's not very stressful on the body.
Yeah.
And once you develop that, it's not that taxing,
Yeah.
right? So I thought, okay, who are the true athletes? Like, how would I really shock myself into doing something I would think I couldn't do?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think I could run a 3-hour marathon. I mean, I'd really have to put forth an
Yeah.
effort. I'm almost 50. I don't know if that's possible. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Now it's like that carrot. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
wouldn't that be a thing?
Yeah.
And notice, and I'm trying to be sincere, I'm not really thinking about what other people would think,
Right.
you know?
It's that
Definitely at some point
self-motivation.
I was into
Mhm.
that a little bit, and I was like, no, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Now I'm just like, oh, yeah, can I do, you know, do the math and what would be the training, and could you even, honestly, I don't even know if someone's done it. I would think so, because of the way they advertise this, because you were going to do the 10K the day before the standard charter marathon in Hong Kong. So I think anyway, it's too vague. I don't really remember. It was like
Yeah.
2012 when I read about it, but it got me thinking, so like now my thought is to do a marathon starting on Lanai, swim the Ao Ao Channel back to Maui, and then finish a marathon. Because you'd have roughly 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours of running, and if you get good water, you can do that in 4 hours.
Yeah.
Some people have done it less. I don't think I could go sub 4, but I probably could do 4. And so I think, wouldn't that be a thing?
Yeah.
Because that would just be
It would be a thing.
Anyway, I mean, it starts like that.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, it's chasing that incredible joy.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't think I experienced the incredible joy during these events. Not like that.
Yeah.
It's
the
after.
retrospect. Mm-hmm.
It's after. I wish I could say, I hear people, I love it,
Yeah.
Somebody told me the harder the conditions, the better. And I was like, you really think that? Like, I want to be fast and have easy water.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't check the weather when I swim in Hawaii, because part of my rationale for training is you gotta be used to bad conditions. So I go out on bad conditions all the time.
Yep.
I don't plan, we're not going to go out this weekend because it looks rough.
Yeah.
I don't pay attention to that. I go.
Yeah.
But that being said, when I'm swimming something big, I want to kind of enjoy it. I don't want to be
Yeah.
smacked in the face with water all
Yeah.
night long.
Yeah.
I want to be, feel cool and just
Yeah.
be like, I'm gliding. This is a great stroke.
Yeah.
I like the pace. That's how I want to feel. I knew it. I saw you from the corner of my eye.
All right.
Anyway.
This is going to be our final question because
Final question.
we
You ready
have
for this?
a helper here. 3 best moments from all of your swims combined. Top 3 moments.
Kalakahi, Captain Koa Fuller, and my kids,
Yep.
and my wife being part of it. That was a big one. I liked swimming around Manhattan last August, 2019. My wife was there. And again, she's not a swimmer, and she's not going to be on the boat.
Yeah.
But just knowing that she was part of it, plus
Yep.
we had an awesome time
Yep.
before and after. I worked a little bit in New York because I was doing some consulting work. So that was a great trip and a great swim.
Yeah.
New York open water. You got low battery. Really tight group, well organized. Rondi and Dave, excellent.
And you saw no bodies in the water.
No one was dead.
That's a bonus.
I perceived the water to be very clean and clear in New York. Not clear, you can't see anything, but clean was my perception. Yeah, it's probably
Before
wrong.
you went.
I loved it. It was a great
Yeah.
swim. Oh, and the guy who kayaked for me for 8 Bridges kayaked that. So I had the same guy, Sean. So he was just awesome. He knew how to handle my attitude and how
Yeah.
to feed me and just
Yeah,
keep me going.
yeah.
And he had agreed to do that after doing 7
Yeah.
days on the water. And then I probably would put, I want to say Spain just because my daughter was so young and she was part of it, but I
Yeah.
kind of liked New Zealand. because I had all this personal time with her. I really got to experience our relationship for the best. I didn't finish that swim, but you know, Phil Rush was solid. He was very encouraging. But he's not like giving you like, oh, good job, you know, not like pushover stuff. I don't need that. I just want a guy who kind of understands the pursuit. He understands the highs and lows of it from the swimmer's perspective. And that guy's like a monument to swimming, you know. Having triple-crossed English, I thought, you know, what a guy.
Yeah.
And so I'm paying him big cash to do it, whatever, I don't care. But I had like 7 lovely days in New Zealand with my daughter. The crew, these 2 curmudgeonly guys were like captaining it, and then Phil and this other guy were on the Zodiac next to me, and they were just kind of an interesting camp of people.
Yeah.
And I really have a deep love of that swim.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I got to go out there. That's why I sit in my cold tank all the times that I do, because I'm like, I got to get used to 58 degree water, and I live in Hawaii, and I'm not moving. You know, so there's that.
Yeah.
But those are the top 3.
All right. Well, we're going to end this chat. I appreciate your time. That was a lot of helpful information. And I think you're influencing the next generation.
I like the conversation. It's good to share these thoughts. And clearly you're passionate about swimming, so it's nice to talk to you.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for readjusting that camera.